Coaching Conversations, Transforming Your School One Conversation at a Time. The book I chose for this book review was Coaching Conversations, Transforming Your School One Conversation at a Time. So much of our curriculum leadership book is devoted to getting the right stakeholders involved in curriculum development, and this book can help us create an atmosphere that fosters the creation of a safe space for them to contribute. It will also help us to have the right kind of productive conversations with each stakeholder, from the community member to the teacher to the fellow administrator. Coaching conversations are different than a lot of the conversations we have each day. Coaching conversations are intentional in nature. We have them because we are trying to achieve a goal. Additionally, they are focused on the other person. We want to know their thoughts and struggles. We learn this through some key listening strategies we will discuss later. Finally, the purpose of a coaching conversation is to stimulate growth and change, leading to a positive action and moving forward. The coaching conversation is not about sharing your experiences, but about asking the right questions so that the person can move in the right direction in a positive way. In truth, in any given situation, we may not know all the answers, even if we are the school leader. Therefore, when we have coaching conversations, we create an environment where everyone has a voice. We can make scary decisions together and elicit an atmosphere of teamwork. Asking the right questions of all team members and giving them that voice also builds trust among the team members. When we give up the mantle of being an expert or a wise one and become an equal partner and collaborator with others, decisions are created by the group. This says we believe in others and their abilities to grow and excel. This isn't to say that school leaders don't have a plethora of knowledge and experience to share as part of the planning and problem-solving process. This knowledge and experience will allow them to guide the parameters, the norms, and other criteria for the group to consider as they make decisions. The school leader can create the frame of the discussion or, if needed, reframe the discussion to stay focused and achieve the goal. The first step in creating the atmosphere of collaboration is committed listening. We all like to feel valued, recognized, and to feel that we have a voice. This means that we must lead through listening to others. As we listen, we need to note verbal and nonverbal cues. Although the speaker may say things like, oh, things are great, how they say it and what their body language notes can be just the opposite. It's important for us to look to these subtle cues and what the person is actually trying to communicate. Just like we strive for wait time in the classroom after asking questions, we need to do the same for our colleagues. We need to provide processing and think time in our conversations, not only when we ask questions, but when we are strategizing and brainstorming. Finally, there are several unproductive patterns of listening that we should watch out for. Sharing our thoughts and ideas can be a scary thing, even if it seems that the person doesn't have any issue with telling you what they think or telling you what they think very often. This can lead to that person maybe being labeled as the complainer or similar in nature. We all have people we work with that, when their name appears on an email or on the caller ID, we sigh a little and wonder what they could possibly want this time. However, it's important to keep in mind that whatever it is, it could have some very real merit. We need to approach every conversation with the respect it deserves. Additionally, if we are too judgmental of our colleagues or others, it can cause people to shut down and hesitate to share their ideas. Autobiographical listening happens when the listener hijacks the conversation. The speaker starts by sharing an experience or a difficulty, and suddenly the listener is telling the story of the time that the same thing happened to them, but it was so much worse. Often, this unproductive listening pattern is an effort to connect with the speaker and show empathy. However, there is a really fine line between I empathize and one-upping the speaker. Inquisitive listening happens when the listener becomes overly curious about irrelevant portions of the speaker's message. The speaker is trying to share an upsetting incident from class, and then the listener is busy asking questions about the environment that are not even relevant to the story. The listener seems to pepper the speaker with questions about details when really, the speaker only wants to be heard. Our last type of unproductive listening is solution listening. Rather than listen to the speaker, the listener is busy trying to brainstorm solutions to the issue. Sometimes this means the listener stops listening because they're focused on how they're going to pitch their solution. It's important to remember that we can always listen without any obligation to act. When we approach the conversation from this perspective, It allows think time for the listener and the speaker to determine what's needed. Did the speaker just need to vent? Or it allows a space for all the information to be shared before moving forward. So how do we become powerful speakers that host dynamic coaching conversations? First, we want to identify the goal of the conversation. Not every conversation is a coaching conversation, and not every conversation will have a goal. But every coaching conversation should have a goal in mind. We've talked about the value of silence and how that can help us create a safe space for creating and having conversations. We also want to express positive intent in the questions we ask and comments we make in the conversation. Questions like, do you have any objectives for today's lesson, implies that the teacher didn't create them or is unprepared. Asking, what objectives have you developed for today's lesson, implies that the objectives are complete and that the teacher is trying to achieve them. Positive intent opens up the floor to discussions. Questions like, did you finish the agenda for today's meeting, are closed and only require a yes or no answer. They don't invite additional discussion. Framing the question as something like, what are the goals for today's meeting, allows for an environment of discussion while ensuring that the presenter is prepared. It's important for us to avoid advice in our coaching conversations. The goal of the conversation is to connect with the individual in a way that allows that individual to take ownership of the issue. More often than not, when we approach a colleague with a problem, we actually know the solution ourselves. We just might not like the solution or may need help processing how to implement the solution. By asking powerful questions, we foster a solution-based atmosphere and are closer to achieving our conversation goal. Powerful questions invite solutions, invite multiple answers, and act as thought starters that encourage us to consider new perspectives. Your goal with positive questions is to help others think and make connections through the open-ended questions that you ask. How can we use what we know about coaching conversations to provide feedback to others? Well, first, we start the dialogue. To do this, we can use clarifying questions such as, well, how did your students respond to the process? Or we may use statements to clarify the specific aspects of a situation we want to discuss. Saying something like, I would like to discuss how you use differentiated instruction in your lesson today. Next, it's important to express the value potential of the person involved in the conversation. We all bring strengths to situations. It's important the conversation participant knows you recognize their strengths and value. Examples include, you really have thought a lot about this, or you clearly care deeply about this topic and your students' knowledge. Finally, we use reflective questions to engage the thinking of the other person and request a response. This helps the other person move forward toward a solution or next step. These kinds of questions include, well, what are you considering in regard to, or something like, I wonder what would happen if. You can use these strategies to answer questions on the fly. Let's say a teacher approached you, excited about a recent lesson. A value statement might be, I can tell you're really excited about this. And then you might follow up with a clarifying question. What worked this time that didn't work last time? Or a reflective question, something along the lines of, how can you use what worked in this lesson in other lessons? There are other ways you can use this same strategy to provide feedback or help create an atmosphere of collaboration, specifically with the members of a curriculum development team. Each member might have different values when they meet to collaborate on curriculum development. Acknowledging this information can bridge differences between team members. Ultimately, everyone is simply trying to do what they consider best for the students. The respect shown by valuing everyone's perspective will help with collaboration. Clarifying questions help us ensure that we are all working together to achieve goals, and those goals are kept clearly in our sights through the use of reflective questions or possibilities. The book is a quick read and has really helped me to have more productive conversations with the residential life staff. I highly recommend it. Although it's also included in the book, the link listed here is a PDF version of the listening skills self-assessment. You can use it to identify where your strengths and hesitations might be. Reading the book with this information in mind can help you focus strategies to practice the areas that you feel you need to practice the most. Thank you.